Welcome to the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority YouTube channel. We post videos on here about twice a month. So today we are on here to talk about how to use a syllabus. It's very important stuff. My name is Stephen Held. I'm the KIA Outreach Counselor for Louisville Metro West. And joining me today is
Tony Wiley, and I am the West Central Kentucky KIA Outreach Counselor.
And so Tony and I are here to show you guys how to use the syllabus, and we're going to make it real nice and quick and neat. So you don't have to stay on here for 30 minutes, an hour. This is going to be pretty quick. So Tony, I'm just going to jump right into it. And I figured let's go ahead and let's do the overview of what a generic syllabus looks like.
Okay, a syllabus is really your contract between your college professor and you. And it's going to begin with the instructor information. So it's going to let you know who the instructor is, where their office is located, and their general hours of being able to meet with students. Then it's going to describe the actual class you will be taking, giving you the expectations and goals, things that you could expect to learn from it. And the expectation goals is a really important part because later, if you go into another program, they may want to see what you've taken previously. So this expectation and goals gives a real good idea of what was covered. It will then tell you which materials you're going to need. And a lot of times students may want to use somebody's books that's already taken the course, or they'll tell you you can buy them online at the bookstore or where you can find them. You do want to be careful though when you're getting your materials, because sometimes the books have a CD or a code that lets you access more information or assignment information online. So you do have to be careful about that. And sometimes students like to get their materials before the class starts. Other times they may want to wait till they actually meet the instructor on that. But it is going to give you an idea of what you're going to need in that class.
And I think it's important that, Tony, that there are required materials, but also there might be some optional materials. That means usually that the professor thinks it's a good idea that you get it. Maybe it's going to be helpful for you later, but it's not necessary to pass the course.
Right. So you definitely want to look at that. Okay, so then when we go over the required text, after that, it's going to show you the course schedule. So it will list when the meeting times are, and this is so important. Your course schedule and the exam schedule are hugely important because it's your contract with that teacher. You need to know when they expect those assignments done. So later, I'm going to tell you a story about someone I know that didn't pay as much attention to that course schedule as they should have, but it is going to let you know when things are due. And if it says it's due on a certain date, it won't matter if there's snow or viruses or whatever else out there. This is your contract, and you better believe it.
That's right. And then a lot of times they'll have additional information and resources at the end. And sometimes that'll be just references to books that you're going, some of the required text. There could be a lot of different kinds of information. This is a generic. It's very important that everybody knows this is generic, right, Tony?
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's just a general overview.
Yeah, so we're looking at a generic one, but guess what? We came prepared. Isn't that right, Miss Wiley? So
That's right.
We're going to look at a real syllabus now. So how to use a real syllabus, and Tony's going to take you through that. So let me pull that up here, and we'll get going. This is an actual syllabus, and I just got this off the internet. It's a little old, but that's okay. They all still look very similar to this. Now, I think it's important, Tony, that people watching this know that not every syllabus is going to look the same, but this is a good example of what one might look like. You might find some syllabi that are very in detail and some that are very brief and to the point, but either way, like you said, this is a contract with your professor for this class. So they're very important, really important.
Right, and I'm just going to note here that the plural of syllabus is not syllabuses, but it is like David said, syllabi, since you're going to have more than one. Yes. Okay. And what I'd like to show on this and why the syllabus is so important, depending on what kind of program you're going into. Say you want to go into engineering or maybe a medical field. When you see the title of the course, below that, it may show if there's a prerequisite. And that's super important because while it may say you need college algebra, the college may be very specific in which college algebra. So sometimes maybe a community college has a regular college algebra, but if you're going into engineering, they may expect maybe one that has a little bit different rigor. So you need to pay careful attention to that. Even if you're doing hands-on courses and you want to go into electronics, there are going to be specific classes you have to take, like building blocks, before you can get to the next one. Now, this part of the course description, again, is super important because it could be very likely that you want to change colleges. Maybe you're doing...
Sorry to interrupt there. I think a lot of prerequisites, you'll start seeing classes that need prerequisites when you get into your higher level courses, right?
Right. Yes. When you're getting more determined into that field. And that's why it can be pretty specific about what that prerequisite means. All right, on this course description, that can come in very handy if you are changing colleges. For example, my son had to switch colleges when St. Catherine College closed. This course description allowed him to do certain substitutions when he was going to another one because it covered similar materials. So even after you've taken that class and you're so ready to chuck all the material, hang on to that syllabus because you may need it a year later, 5 years later, if you're going into graduate studies. Your next college is going to want to know what that had. Okay, and then learning objectives, again, are going to be important. You want to know, what am I going to get out of this class? What is it going to do for me? Why do I need it? And then the objectives, of course, what they want you to get, and the outcomes are what you're going to see when it's finished. So it's going to detail that. And then the course format. This is super important. It's going to describe, is this going to be an in-class presentation? Is it going to be online? Or could it be a hybrid? Hybrids are where you do half of each. Some of my graduate work I did as a brief residency. So we had 10 days, hot and heavy, living on the campus, really concentrated in the work morning till night. And then we had 3 months of correspondence. So it's going to tell you how that class is going to operate. It could also be like, it could tell you we're going to do it over 5 weekends. Friday nights, do labs, and then Saturdays, do field excursions, depending on what that class is. And then the student evaluation, Stephen is going to get in a lot more of that, how you actually get your grade.
Yeah. So your student evaluation is important. I think it's one of the most important things on the syllabus, because it tells you exactly how much each one of your grades are going to be worth at the end. It's going to break up what the objective and what that those requirements are, that course format, and it's going to break it into, this is what you're going to be evaluated on. As you can see in this example, we have 2 tests, test 1 and 2. We're going to have some assignments and quizzes, which will probably be spread out throughout the semester. Laboratory work, so you know that you're going to have to go to a lab to study probably hands-on material, and then a final examination. What I like is this tells you exactly what you need to do to get the grade you want in this class. And so, as you can tell, the final examination here is 40% of your grade. That is really high compared to the other grades, right?
Yes.
Weighted average. And so weighted average is a very important concept, and you should have learned this in high school. But if you need a little refresher, weighted average takes the weight of each one of these assignments or tests or examinations, and it assigns weight to them as a percentage. I'm going to show you how to break down the math here in a second and look at how you can calculate your scores and what you need to get the grade you want. And hopefully all of us want A's, right? After that, it shows the format for the final examination, which is really great. like I said, sometimes, Tony, some of these syllabi don't have that in-depth detail, but some do. So it's telling you right now.
It's really nice. And can I interject on this?
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
I went back to college and I was taking an algebra class and I had done all the homework. So I got lots of points for getting my homework done. And then there were maybe only 2 or 3 tests, but the homework and actual assignments were weighted so high because there were so many. At the end, I had a conflict with the day of the final exam. And I looked at it and I literally, because I'd done all that other work, could have completely skipped the final exam and the value that it had and still ended up with a B. I ended up taking at least half the exam so that I could get an A, but college empowers you. And this contract is part of it because it's not just a contract for the instructor, it's a contract for you. And so you can look at that and say, well, you know, I know this is not my strong suit, but I could pick it up on this other end. And Stephen, would you agree that a lot of students, well, when we see your example, that first college exam can be a real eye-opener for a lot of people.
It really can.
It's different than what you've had in high school.
It really can. And you know, the professor is kind of hinting to you what you really need to worry about. Of course, we don't want you to skip anything. Assignments, like Tony said, Tony had a class where she did her assignments, and that really saved her at the end. But class, it's only worth 10%. Now you need to do those assignments to get an A, because if you don't do any of them, which I'm going to show you why, then the highest you could get is a 90% in that class. But the professor is telling you, I'm going to put a lot of weight on that exam, that final exam. So you better make sure you study enough for that final exam and don't act, it is not equal. So these things are weighted differently. And
those other components build up to it.
Yeah.
One other thing I saw, some professors, I'm sure you've heard that attendance is optional, but some professors actually put in the grading scale a component for your attendance. So just showing up with some professors can boost your grade, but helps you know what the material is.
And sometimes, Tony, those assignments and quizzes, those are only in class. So
that's right, and you cannot make them up.
And so they might not say you have to come to class, but we're going to do a quiz every time you show up. And if you're not there to take the quiz, then guess what? You don't get
the points.
So that's how they'll get you to come to class. So
right.
Let people fool you. Professors do care if you come to class in college.
They do. They do.
The best thing here is the grading scale. This shows you exactly what to expect. I always say it's great when you know what to expect. So for those of you who are ever worried about college or how it's going to be structured, well, here it is. It's very structured. There's no secrets, and you know what to expect when you show up. And that's what I like about college, you know. And I really enjoyed that. I thrived in that environment. Some people don't, but that's why we're doing this video, to kind of help you navigate that process.
Right. And to add to that, Stephen, in high school, if you find out you're not doing as well as you thought, you could always beg, can I do some extra credit here or there? That doesn't really happen in college. You have that contract, you know what's expected, and you're supposed to deliver.
That's right. That's right. I always say it's time to put the big boy and the big girl pants on, right?
Right.
With all that being said, let's get to my favorite part. And Tony, I know you like math too. Weighted average.
Yeah.
Now, the weighted average, and let me pull up my document here. Okay. A weighted average is where you assign weight to a number, and then you multiply that by the weighted factor. So on our example from our syllabus, the real syllabus, we had 2 tests, we had some quizzes and assignments, a laboratory score, and a final exam. The weight of each one of those were 20%, 20%, 10% for the quizzes, 10% for the laboratory, and 40% for the final exam. If you look, that equals 100%. It's all going to equal 100% because 100% is the highest percentage you can get in a class, right, Tony? Well,
Right.
we're going to turn that weight into a factor. So this weighted factor here is basically just like you learned in high school, we're turning a percentage into a decimal. And what you do is you carry the decimal 2 places to the left, and that is how we do multiplication with a percentage point. So the weighted factor for a 20% weight is 0.2, 0.2, 0.1, 0.1, and 0.4, following those percentage. So that's how we get weighted factors. Okay, if you're not positive on how that happens, please ask somebody, ask a teacher who can teach you this math. Okay, it's very important before you go into college. Now, this is our example put out, and we've given you some actual grades. So to do this, to find our final grade, we're going to take the grades that you get on test 1, test 2, the quizzes, the lab, and the final exam, and we're going to multiply it by that weighted factor. Okay. Now, in the first test, we got a 70%. Like Tony said, sometimes that first test can be a doozy, right, Tony?
Right. A rude awakening.
A rude awakening. And so now, if we just looked at this and averaged all of these scores together, we're not going to get a weighted average. We're going to get a simple average. So we're going to get a mean for all of those grades. And it is not going to come out to the right score because we have to use the weighted factors to find out how many points each one of these individual columns, these different categories, how many points is going to add to the final exam. So if we got a 70% on the first exam and the weighted factor, remember, it was weighted 20% of the final grade. So our factor is 0.20. If we multiply that, that's 14 points towards the final grade. We're going to do
another way of saying that would be the most points you could have gotten for test 1 would be 20 points.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Tony.
You got 14 of it.
We got 14 out of 20. Now we're going to do the same. Test 2, we got a 90% on. So we take 90 points times 0.2 factor, and that gives us 18 out of how many possible?
20.
That's right, because it was a 20% weighted grade. Assignments and quizzes, hey, you knocked that out of the park. You got 100%. But look at this, because the factor is lower, you only get 10 points for that. Now, even though that's higher than these other two, that's why weighted averages are important, because even though you got a 70 on test 1, it's way more. And so a 70 actually netted you more points than getting 100% on all of the quizzes and assignments.
Right.
Now,
but those 10 points could save you if
that's right. Thank you, Tom.
On that other test.
That's exactly right. Because what you lack in this test, now you've made up by getting all the points in quizzes and assignments. That's a very good point, Tony. Then the lab, you got an 80%, and that's also a 10% weight or a 0.1 factor. That's 8 points. And then look at that final exam, though. Because it's weighted, 40% of the final grade gives you a 0.4 factor. Since it's 40% of the final grade, look at how many points you get for that final exam. Well, you got a 90 on that, and that gave you the most points. I mean, that was more than the first 2 tests combined.
Right.
It's very important to look at those weights. Now, you get the final grade points, 14 plus 18 plus 10 plus 8 plus 36. That gives us our final grade of 86. That means you got 86% of all the points possible in that class. And Tony, if we go back to our syllabus, which I'm about to do right now, let's go back to our actual syllabus. We can look and see the grading scale. Look at that.
That gives you a B.
We're going to get an A, aren't we? Because
are we going to get an A?
Yeah, look, see.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm really close in here.
In this class, an A starts at 85 and goes to 89. An A minus is 84. So because of the grading scale in this class, you still got an A.
Awesome.
There we go. And so that is why syllabi are so important. I think that we've proven our point, right, Tony?
We have. So I have one story to tell you.
Yeah, tell a story for us.
About my son. I love using him as an example. When he first started college, he did not look at his syllabi, any of them, because he said in high school, they never went by them.
That's right.
Like, you really need to look at that syllabus because it's your contract. He's like, no, they're not going to use it. They never used them in high school. So taking, and I love this, a speech class, public speaking, that was an online hybrid.
Oh, man.
Now we do a lot of public speaking with virtual Zoom and cameras like that. But when he did it, they didn't really have that. So I thought that was kind of interesting that he could do a public speaking online.
Yeah.
But he did not look at his syllabus. He said, it did not matter. And we had some snow days in there. I'm like, you know what? It's going to matter. They're still going to have that exam. He's like, no, they won't. Well, of course they did. And unfortunately, he had to repeat that class.
There you go.
That one, he understood the importance of this syllabus. It really is your contract. It's for the student's benefit.
Yep.
You understand what all is going to be included and how you need to fulfill that course.
Yep.
And go long-term help too if you decide that you're going to go into a specific program or you want to transfer to another school or maybe continue with graduate or doctoral studies.
Yeah. Well, I think that story is a great lesson for all of you out there who are thinking about trying to game the system, because I'm going to tell you, it doesn't work, right? They stick to the syllabus. And so it's very important to follow the contract. It is a contract. It's an educational contract. You do need to follow it, and you will see these in every single class that you take in college. So
yes,
I hope How to Use a Syllabus has helped you today. Again, my name is Stephen Held. This is my colleague, Tony Wiley, Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority. Please check us out at kheaa.com anytime that you need help for college or career access issues. Tony, thanks for joining me. Thanks for having me. Thanks for helping. And I think we're going to sign off with that.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.